So I've talked a lot about how there's maybe two different ways of doing things that have been passed down, throughout history, like two different sets of knowledge, maybe. One could be like the knowledge that was given to Seth's lineage, the good lineage in the Bible, and then the other one would be Cain's lineage. And so like one of them would be how to return to God, like the good lineage would want to return to God, and then the evil lineage would want to follow like the devil's plan kind of a thing, right? And they would want to kind of just prolong their earthly life and just gain more things on this earth. And I've mentioned the Cathara sequence and Fibonacci sequence before, how there's like two different mathematical patterns that one of them stays connected to the source. There's like a 0 point that the Cathara sequence, it'll stay with it. You can always trace it back to 0, but the Fibonacci sequence, it'll actually go away from 0. Will constantly get farther and farther away the more it goes, and so it's like getting away from God in a sense, like the Cathara stays with God and the Fibonacci goes away from God. Yeah, there's also like the two different Mercuries. There's like the Quicksilver, which is just normal Mercury, and then there's a red Mercury, supposedly that is like a vampire type substance or something. And there's also like a lot of this duality throughout, pretty much everything. There's like in Freemasonry, there's like the two pillars, and there's also like the black and white floor and everything. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different forms of duality like that. And like one theory that I had is like, that basically in the beginning, that everybody was like a vegan pretty much. Like in one book called Man's Higher Consciousness by Hilton Hotema, he talks about like breatharianism and stuff, and how basically in the beginning of existence, everybody was a vegan or a breatharian. And so basically they had no need for food or anything like that. And so all they needed was just like to breathe the air, and that was enough. And a lot of people think that Mount Meru could have been like a giant tree at one point, and like it was like so big that the leaves actually encompass the whole earth. And there's also the idea that like many plateaus and things that are of that nature, like Devil's Tower, like those type of rock formations could actually be like giant tree stumps. And so pretty much the idea was that there's giant trees everywhere, and so the whole earth was encompassed by like trees and stuff. And so it kind of created this greenhouse effect where like there was no need for seasons or anything. Like seasons didn't really exist, and everything just kind of grew everywhere. You had fruit and everything everywhere, so there was no need to like kill anything. And there was just fruit growing everywhere pretty much. But basically today, veganism is kind of looked like as a kind of a new world order agenda. Like people think that if you're a vegan, it's kind of like a leftist thing, and like you shouldn't be vegan and stuff. Like it's actually like their whole plan is to have us be vegan so that we'll like accept eating like weird 3D printed food and stuff like this. But that's not really the true vegan way. Like to be a true vegan would just be eating like purely organic food, And so really, like, I think the true human diet is that type of vegan, like where you're like eating completely organic food. And according to the research that I've done, like it seems like that could actually lengthen your lifespan, to have that type of a diet, But like also, like apparently the elites are able to prolong their life by drinking blood, And you just gotta think about it like a vampire. Apparently they're able to live longer by drinking blood and stuff. But so here's the idea: is it actually could potentially work, maybe scientifically, that young blood could actually perhaps prolong the life of an older person. But obviously that's not the way to do it. That's not the way you'd want to do that. That's not a natural. It doesn't seem like a healthy way to do it necessarily, in my opinion. But it is maybe possible, and so perhaps eating meat could have some correlation there, where maybe perhaps you could actually eat meat, and it actually will have some effects to lengthen your lifespan. And I've also heard that the bloodier the meat, the better. Supposedly eating raw meat is actually the way to do it, according to some people. And so it's maybe that's kind of true in some sense, But again, it's there's two different ways of doing things, right? There's two paths you can take, two different sets of teachings and knowledge. And maybe at some point, being a carnivore was taught. And it's this could actually help you on this earthly life in some way, but that's not really the way to do it. I've heard that being like a breatharianism, being a breatharian, you're kind of more spiritual, you're just more in tune with the spiritual side of things. And so that's kind of the idea, is one of them is going to lead you back to the spiritual, one of them is going to make you more physical, and it's kind of obvious. So I think that if you're a vegan, or if you eat just less dense foods, fruit is probably the least dense thing you could eat, so fruit's the best thing if you're going to be eating anything, and distilled water. And so if you're eating the least dense things possible, you're going to be more spiritual. You're going to be more in tune with that spiritual side of things. And obviously if you're eating really dense things, you're going to be kind of brought down to a more dense level almost, And so you're kind of perceiving things from a more dense perspective, in a sense. I've also talked about fasting in the past, and fasting is one of those things that is really good for your health, because it kind of gives your body a break from digesting food, and instead of using energy for that, you can use energy to get rid of toxins and other things, and maybe it helps your brain just kind of work better, honestly. And it definitely kind of helps you be more in tune with the spiritual side of things, I would say. So basically there's two different diets, obviously, that could have been taught with all these teachings, but when it comes to that whole idea of the two different paths that you can take, the Cathara versus the Fibonacci sequence, and these other kind of duality things we see. My main question is how do we know which ones what things to do, basically what practices and stuff are okay, and which ones are bad, because in some cases they kind of get mixed together, some of these practices kind of fall under both categories, so it's okay, so what do I do there exactly? Fasting is is kind of a new age practice, to a lot of people. They think fasting is a new age thing, and really it's also a very good thing. It actually helps you. It can actually have a lot of health benefits and stuff. And so there we see that it kind of falls under both of these categories, I guess you could say, of good and bad teachings. Which ones actually help you return to the source, and which ones help you just be more material and just kind of stay here and get farther away from the source. Because really the meaning of being damned is just kind of not progressing. And so if you just kind of stay in one spot, you're not progressing at all, and so you're damned for that reason. And so that's what it means. But so it's we obviously, if you like believe in the Bible and all this stuff, like which it's obviously debatable depending on who you talk to about it. But I think there's actually a lot of evidence there, and we should definitely take it seriously. I think, or at least not disregard it, because there could be a lot of answers in there, I think. And the Bible says that Satan is a roaring lion, and Lucifer is an angel of light. So basically, he's gonna be coming at you as like an angel of light to deceive you at first, and you're gonna be deceived into following certain practices, doing certain things. Like, I've heard yoga is one of those things. Meditation could be one of those things. And obviously, it's not like completely bad, but like evil in a sense. But like there's, it's a doorway in a sense. It can lead to other things, and it allows access for demonic influence, supposedly. And so I don't know how true it all is, but it's things you gotta be wary about, because if it's true, it's pretty spooky. But yeah, so he's gonna come as a lion at first, or an angel of light, and he's gonna be a lion later on and devour you. And that's what happens. And so with these new age practices and stuff, and like having there's two different paths and all this stuff, I think that somewhere along the line these things got mixed together. And so I don't think that like everything that like the new age does is bad, because like the idea about the pineal gland and stuff, how it's like, it kind of makes us human and stuff. It's like everything comes from the pineal gland, and it's kind of what rejuvenates the body and everything. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It makes us more intuitive and stuff. And so if it's calcified, then like you're gonna be less intuitive and whatever. And I think that there's truth to that. And so like open your third eye and stuff, like maybe there's something to that idea, but also maybe it's not entirely what we would assume. People go into it with good intentions. Maybe it's like, I don't know if it's really gonna be exactly what you expect if you go about it a certain way, because maybe it's not exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Who knows? And maybe it's tampering with something that we don't really understand, and who knows? I mean, the whole idea about the serpent lying at the base of the spine, the kundalini, like, that's a little suspicious in my opinion, like, because everything kind of goes back to a serpent, the reptilian elite or whatever, right? And like, what did Satan appear as to Eve in the garden? Like a serpent. So it's like, and that was the first like lie ever told, was that we could be like God and stuff. And so open your third eye is like, oh, you're gonna be like a God and stuff. So it's like it's all a little suspicious when you look at it from like a biblical kind of point of view. It's like, I don't know, it could be something deceptive, something that's gonna kind of mislead you and take you down a dark path. But I wouldn't I wouldn't say that it's not possible that it could have some benefits, and that there's some good things you can get out of it and stuff, and like it's actually helpful. And I don't know, I don't have all the answers. And there's also chi. People talk about chi like it's a Chinese word that means like energy or electricity actually, and it's kind of like just the energy that goes through the body, and like it goes through the chakras and whatever. And so if there's like blockages, like that's like why they do like acupuncture and stuff like that. It's because there's like blockages in the body that are trying to free up, so this energy can flow through you better. And so when you open your third eye, like your pineal gland kind of works better, and like all the energy from it can kind of flow better, and it can help you like be like have these kind of abilities in a sense, almost like people talk about being able to like just withstand pain and stuff, or just create some kind of like energy from their bodies, like the one guy who can make like fire from his hand, or like being able to kind of control the weather around you, supposedly, or just be able to kind of create a force field on your body in a sense that you can not get like penetrated by like a sword or whatever. You can like basically block it from going through you, and like actually kind of prevent serious injury from using your chi. And I guess it can actually be called a vril. Supposedly it's kind of like one and the same, like it's kind of the same force or something. And that's kind of interesting because vril is like what Donald Marshall talks about, and like, you know, it's just the vril society and all these things, like very interesting. They're interested in all the occult stuff as well, and it's all very fascinating, you know. And so it's like, I believe that there is truth to all, to some of it, you know. There's definitely some truth within these theories and whatnot, and I believe it is possible for us to kind of like improve ourselves in a way that we can have abilities kind of like that. I'm sure there is a way to do that, but you know, like I think that with the third eye thing, you know, like meditation and that kind of stuff, like basic meditation, like it's to take no thought, you know, to have no thought at all is meditation. And I believe in the Bible somewhere, I don't know for sure where it says it, but it's like it says to basically meditate on the words of the Bible or something. And so it's kind of different than just taking no thoughts. Like basically you free your mind except for the Bible, and so like you only focus on the Bible, and so you can kind of like understand what it's saying to you, you know. Whereas just meditation is just taking no thought at all. And then what that allows is maybe like, you know, demonic influence can kind of get in there somewhere and start causing some problems. One of the New Age things that I think is definitely kind of I guess you could say demonic, or, you know, at least not correct, is the idea of having like a spirit guide, or just kind of being able to make contact with extra dimensional beings and get like advice from them or knowledge from them in some way, or, you know, they're going to help you out in some way. Basically, they're going to guide you. They're going to be your spirit guide, and like that whole idea, I think, is pretty spooky, because it's like these things are probably not like a spirit that's helpful in any way. They're probably in reality like a demon or something, you know. And so it's like that idea is pretty weird. And so I think that's definitely one of the things that you'd want to like stay away from. But supposedly people like Tesla and stuff like actually had contact with these beings, like Aleister Crowley did and stuff. Like all these occult people make contact with other beings and stuff. But you know, like who knows? I guess it's possible to learn some stuff from them, obviously, because, you know, the devil's gonna mix truth with lies all the time. So you can definitely get some knowledge from them. You can get some insight about certain things and whatnot. But, you know, in the end, it's gonna kind of, you know, it might corrupt you. It might bring you down. You know, and it's kind of the whole end goal of them making contact with you, so they can bring you down pretty much. And yeah, throughout history, like a lot of different people have messed with magic and stuff. Like, you know, there's obviously like John Dee and Edward Kelly, and then there's like, you know, Helena Blavatsky and all these other occultists that came around the same time, and that the Vril Society started messing with it a lot, like trying to just discover all the occult secrets and occult sciences or whatever, and which basically involved magic and science kind of combined in a sense. And so like it involved like kind of trying to basically bring about demons and stuff, like summon demons, or like create other beings and stuff, like just weird things, you know, that they're messing with. And so yeah, it's just pretty weird. And I think the whole idea about magic, the whole goal of magic is pretty much to take energy from God or the source, you know, that they're trying to draw energy from that and harness it and bring it down to like a material level where they can like utilize it here on Earth, you know, in some way. So it's just stealing God's power, kind of like the idea of like Prometheus, you know, stealing fire from the gods and giving it to mortals and stuff. It's all the same concept, and that's what they've been trying to do all along. That's like their whole goal, is to like steal the energy from God so that they can prolong their lives and they can continue living on this earth and have power and control and whatever. And that's pretty much what Satan's power is. It's just an inverted version of God's power. It just inverts what God does. And so but like I think that humans are kind of connected to the source. Like humans have a connection to God, and so if they can get a hold of a human, then they're able to basically draw energy from that human, which is tapped into the source, and they can get energy from the source that way, like through us. So Aleister Crowley apparently made contact with some kind of being, a demon or something, named Aiwas, who basically relayed to him the Book of the Law. And I think it was believed that this demon that Aleister Crowley made contact with was from Sirius, like the Sirius star system or something. And it's really weird. Like Sirius is known as like the dog star, and I think that's interesting. I think it was like shining the brightest during July, and it was like the dog days of summer, and that's kind of like where it got its name from. And there's something to do with that, at the hottest time of the year and stuff. But it's also weird that like in the Bible, the Canaanites are kind of the bad guys throughout it. And it's interesting because I think in like Matthew chapter 15 verses 22 through 26, Jesus actually refers to like the Canaanites as dogs. You can kind of interpret it that way, that he's referring to Canaanites as dogs. Let's read it here actually. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. So that's kind of interesting. So you could maybe interpret that as Canaanites being referred to as dogs there, but who knows? But it's also strange that the word like Canaan and canine just sounds so similar. It's very strange that there's a similarity there with the words. And like Egypt has depictions of humans with the dog head and stuff like that. So there seems to be some kind of weird connection with dogs and maybe like, aliens or whatever you want to call it, like demons and stuff. There's some strange connection with the Canaanites and dogs and all this stuff. But I've also mentioned how there's some strange connection with the serpent too. Like it all goes back to the serpent. And in Matthew chapter 10 verse 16 it says, Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So the serpent has kind of always been used as like a symbol for wisdom, represents wisdom. But it kind of goes back to the Garden of Eden, right? Like the serpent that appeared to Eve, kind of promising her wisdom of some sort, like saying you can have the wisdom of good and evil, you can have the knowledge of good and evil. And so he kind of represents wisdom for that reason. But it was kind of like a lie. It's like the wisdom of the world, If you had the wisdom of the world, it's not really going to be worth anything. Actually, in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 18 to 19, it says, Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. And that's interesting, right? Because it kind of goes back to the idea that there's like two sets of wisdom passed down, right? There's two sets of knowledge that have been passed down. And one of them is of this world, and one of them is of like God's world, right? So it's like there's two different ways of doing things. But Jesus tells us to be wise as serpents, and so that kind of goes back to like, okay, you gotta like actually know about the serpent knowledge, I guess, because if you're gonna be living in this world now that it's been corrupted this way, you have to know like the tactics of the enemy. You have to kind of know like what they're gonna do to try to deceive you and stuff. So you have to like be aware of what their knowledge is as well. Obviously, it also says to be harmless as doves, so you're not gonna really practice what they do, but you're gonna know about it. You're gonna be aware of what they do. Obviously, you gotta be careful with that though, because you don't want to, actually accidentally practice these things. You don't want to accidentally do things you shouldn't be doing. And like King Solomon, he's like kind of known for being wise. He was known as being like a super wise king, and it's because he wanted to seek out all the wisdom he could. He was curious, basically. He just wanted to know everything he could know. And so it's said in certain texts that he's like actually summoning demons and stuff. He had contact with demons, and basically was asking them questions, asking them how to use their power and things along those lines. He wanted to know about what they could do, pretty much. And it's actually said that he employed some of them to help build his temple, which is pretty strange. There's also the caduceus that's carried by Mercury and Hermes, and like those characters are both the same as like Enoch and stuff, and pretty much all the wisdom kind of goes back to Hermes. It all goes back to Hermes Trismegistus, and so yeah, and they are depicted carrying this staff with serpents on it, and some people say that staff kind of represents the the tree of life or whatever, the tree of knowledge of good and evil or whatever. It was at the Garden of Eden, and that the serpent around it is kind of depicting Satan as a serpent around the tree, with those two of them, obviously. So it's up for debate, obviously, what that means. And there's a story with Moses raising the staff that had the serpent wrapped around it, like the bronze serpent or something that was like on the staff or whatever. And the people who were sick from getting bitten by other snakes, if they looked at this serpent on the pole or the rod that he had, then they would be healed from their bites. But kind of going back to that idea that the caduceus kind of represents Satan around the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I think it's interesting because there's a book called Smoky God, right? And in this book, like a teenage kid and his dad go on a voyage on a fishing boat to try to just go as far north as possible. And supposedly it's a true story. The kid who wrote it, or the kid who survived, his dad died on the way back, and he told his story to somebody else later on in life. When he was an old man, he was actually put to a mental asylum for many years because no one believed him. But basically, he told a story. He never denied it at all. Basically, he said that they went to the North Pole. They traveled very far north until they saw a second sun. They went through some storms and whatnot, almost crashed multiple times, and eventually they saw a boat come towards them, and it was a really big boat, a really nice boat, and the people who were on it were very tall people with like red hair, blonde hair, and they actually brought them on the boat with them and took them to where they lived, and it was basically the North Pole. On the flat Earth map, you'll see the 4 continents or whatever in the North Pole, and that's probably where they went. They went over to those continents, and somewhere over there, there's like an inner Earth area or something. But basically, they ended up taking them to their capital at one point, which was named Eden. The capital was called Eden, and I think that's very strange. A lot of people believe that at the center of the flat Earth there was like a giant tree at one point. Like, in the beginning, it was a gigantic tree that encompassed the whole Earth, and so basically, that being near Eden is interesting because, like, what is that tree? Is that the tree that had the forbidden fruit, or what is that? Was that the tree that Satan wrapped around as a snake? And is that why this is Satan's world, is depicting that on the Caduceus, that this is Satan's world and this is the wisdom of Satan, kind of a thing? I don't know. It's obviously speculation, but it's an interesting idea, at least. I've also heard that the serpent could kind of represent the sun in some way, like the Ouroboros of the serpent kind of eating its tail and going in a circle. That kind of represents the sun. I don't know. But there's also, been a lot of sun worship, obviously, in the past. Like all of them worship the sun, and they say, Lucifer is the light bearer and stuff like that. So the light is Lucifer, kind of a thing. So they worship the sun, which is the creation, not the creator. But yeah, it's still very strange. But it goes back to like Osiris, and apparently Osiris and Nimrod could actually be the same person. Because Osiris was said to be killed and like cut up into pieces and stuff like that, and supposedly there's a story of Nimrod having the same thing happen to him, where he was dismembered and his pieces were scattered throughout, and the secret societies kind of took those pieces and started their own little groups with those things that they had to worship and stuff. It's all very strange, but like the word Osiris and Isis, like they all go back to Sirius, right? Like I think Sirius kind of contains those words in it. And even the money system we have, like one eye money that we have with the dollar bill symbol, the dollar symbol. It's an S with lines through it. Supposedly, there's two S's actually there, and one of the S's is just behind the other, so you only see one of them, and the two lines are eyes, so it spells Isis. I wondered if Isis, Osiris, and Horus are kind of like the evil Holy Trinity in a way. It's like the counterfeit version of the Holy Trinity. There was said to be like 3 ages or eons or whatever throughout the centuries, and the first one would be the age of Isis, I think it was, and then it was Osiris. Or it might have been Osiris first and then Isis, but then the last age was Horus, and that was said to be ushered in by Aleister Crowley, and that's the age that we are currently in, and that would be like Horus is like the Antichrist because he's like the child of that Trinity there, and so he's basically like the counterfeit Jesus in a sense. He's like the opposite of Jesus, and so he's kind of like the Antichrist. And so basically this age that we're living in now is like the Antichrist age, supposedly. And Aleister Crowley kind of like was the beginning of the end kind of a thing, I guess you could say. So in 1904, I think it was, Aleister Crowley made contact with some being that was said to be from Sirius, and it was called Iwas. And this being, alien thing, told him or relayed to him the book of the law that he has a book of called that. And so it's just weird that Sirius is known as a dog star, right? And Sirius kind of contains the words Isis and Osiris, and it's known as a dog star, I think they say, because like the dog days of summer, it was brightest in July, and so it was at the for whatever reason Sirius was associated with that time of the year, and so they call it a dog star for that. But in Egypt we see depictions of like dog-headed people, We see weird things like that through in other hieroglyphs and stuff. There's stories of like werewolves and those kind of things like, and so it's just strange that somehow like the Canaanites and stuff too, also in the Bible, that the like dog star and like the idea of like a dog-headed person and stuff throughout history has been kind of like just prevalent, and how the word Osiris and Isis kind of go back to Sirius. Like it sounds like Sirius, and I think they even have some kind of correlation to Sirius, and so it's just very interesting, to say the least, that there's these strange connections with all that. But Aleister Crowley is also known for making contact with some other demon thing called Lamb, that he made a drawing of it, and it looks like a gray alien. And so, it's pretty weird. So Aleister Crowley was definitely messing around with some kind of portals. He was opening doors to other dimensions or something, bringing demons and whatnot into the world. And then I think Jack Parsons was kind of like his successor in a way. I think Aleister Crowley actually mentored him for a while before he died. And so Jack Parsons kind of learned a lot from Aleister Crowley, and I think he even was in charge of one of his like churches or whatever it was. But yeah, it's strange that later on Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientology guy, they both like grouped up basically and started like opening portals too. They started messing with black magic and stuff, trying to make contact with demons and stuff. They were doing all that same stuff that Aleister Crowley was doing, and it's said that they actually went to like the area that is now known as Area 51. They did some kind of massive ritual thing there that was supposed to like usher in Babylon or something, and yeah, a bunch of weird stuff, and like the Antichrist and stuff, and yeah, so basically L. Ron Hubbard said he saw Jack Parsons rip a hole in space-time, and that something evil flew in, and I don't think they ever closed that hole they opened up. And so basically things have kind of been leaking in from other dimensions, like a lower, darker dimension. Things are coming in from there, perhaps, that's what it seems like. Some kind of demonic things are able to get through the cracks. So possibly these things are coming from Sirius, whatever that is, in reality, because we know that this Earth is kind of like a flat Earth, and so space is not really what we're told it is. So whatever Sirius is some kind of energy orb of some sort, who knows. But basically, one thing I forgot to mention about the whole dog star thing, and how the Canaanites, and it sounds like canine and stuff, and they're the bad guys in the Bible. The word dog itself, it's God spelled backwards, which is really strange, because that Satan always inverts things. He just mimics what God does in a way, and so it's just very strange that just so happens to be God spelled backwards. So what I think magic really is, like black magic really, I guess it's all basically the same thing, but it's the worship of demons. You're basically paying honor to the demons, and we know from the Book of Enoch that the Nephilim became evil spirits on the earth, that they are basically destined to just kind of be on the earth forever without a body. And so they have all these desires and stuff, right? Like they had, because the Nephilim were giants, and they pretty much like ruled the earth when they were alive. When they were around, they had control, because they were giants, and they were cannibalizing people, and they kind of just controlled everything, and that's like why things got so corrupted. That's why the flood had to happen. And so, but these Nephilims, they had all, basically when they were alive, they had access to every desire they wanted. And now that they're evil spirits, they don't have a body, so they can no longer experience those same pleasures that they once could. And so what they do, they want to try to possess us so that they can experience those things again through our bodies. And it all goes back to the idea that Satan is the god of this world, and the Nephilim are like his minions or whatever. You know, they do his bidding, and they followed his plan and his idea. And so, yeah, like the Nephilim, they actually might have been, maybe, they might have played some part in the creation of the world in some way, or they might have at least learned the secrets of it. So in a sense, it's kind of like, you know, almost like if we're in a video game or something like that, right? If life is a video game, then I believe it's possible that the fallen angels could have actually learned the secrets of how the game works, you know? And so it's like a game that has cheat codes in it. You know, like the fallen angels, they know the cheat codes. The Nephilim would likely know the same because they were the offspring of the fallen angels. And so they knew the secrets of how to obtain certain things, maybe. And so pretty much the magicians, they now would pay honor to the Nephilim, the evil spirits on the earth, because they have secrets that they can reveal to the magician. And the magician just wants to gain more things on this earthly life, right? They just want to gain more material things. And so the Nephilim, the fallen angels, or whatever you want to call it, the demons, they're able to provide certain information that will help them obtain certain things in this life. And so that's their overall goal, is to just kind of get more gain in this material existence. But we know from the Bible and stuff that we're not supposed to just seek treasures on earth. We're supposed to seek treasures in heaven. And that's the whole point, is you know, certain people like magicians and stuff, black magicians, they're gonna try to kind of follow the devil's plan in a way. They just want to experience more of this earthly life and more pleasures on this earth, rather than seek the real joy which is in heaven. I think magic might have actually started with Cain and basically just passed down through his lineage. It's even said that Cain's son, Enoch, committed suicide accidentally by performing some type of ritual that involved them like jumping into a pit or something, and basically Satan said that he would save them, but he didn't. And it was all just like you know, to try to gain power from Satan and stuff. Just and that's always the goal, is just to get more power, more material gain. But the devil doesn't care about anybody. Like, it's like the Dark Knight trilogy, right? Like in Batman, right? The second Dark Knight movie, when in the beginning scene it has the Joker, and they're all robbing the bank and stuff. All the other Jokers are with them, robbing the bank, and nobody knows for sure who the actual real Joker is. And they're all just kind of playing their part. And once each part is done with, you know, the other member will kill them off. But none of them know the full picture. They don't know they're all gonna die. They don't know they're all gonna get killed off. They think they're gonna kill one person and get a share of their money. But that's not how it works. In the end, only the one Joker actually lives. So I think that all of the magicians throughout all of history have basically been the same, where they think that they're gonna, you know, get some kind of gain out of it, but really the devil is just using them. They're just being used for his agenda. And, it goes all the way back to, like, Nimrod. And, then King Solomon apparently got involved with this stuff. He might have been righteous at first. God favored him in the beginning. But he kind of betrayed God. He went against what God wanted him to do. He obviously had all kinds of concubines and wives, which doesn't really seem like a very godly thing. And, I think God actually, he didn't really favor Solomon in the end. And Solomon's kingdom was divided at his death. And I think the same thing happened to, David and, other people in the Bible that might have been good in the beginning, but they got corrupted. And Solomon is known as being wise. He was just known as a very wise king. But it's because it's the serpent wisdom, right? He's trying to seek wisdom from demons, which I don't think could ever really go right. And so basically it's actually said in some texts that Solomon used demons to build the temple and all that stuff. And so the Freemasons kind of trace it all back to Solomon, and Nimrod's actually the father of Freemasonry. But yeah, it's all very fascinating and weird, but I think in the end they all kind of just kind of get forgotten by God. God doesn't really favor them anymore. It's said that like Aleister Crowley, his last words were supposedly, "I am perplexed." And Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, the Satanic Bible, his last words were something along the lines of, "Oh my, what have I done?" And something is very wrong. Like when they died, there was like something was wrong. They weren't at peace, basically. And Jack Parsons was said to have died from some mysterious explosion at his home. So again, it's a lot like the Dark Knight movie, where the Joker is kind of in charge of the whole plot to rob the bank, and all the other Jokers get killed off in the end. Like all the magicians and stuff who would practice these satanic things, in the end, like, Satan doesn't care about them anymore. They did their part and they're just through with. But it's strange how all this stuff connects to aliens and UFO sightings and all that kind of stuff, because like Aleister Crowley's depiction of it, that lamb demon was like basically an alien. It looked like a gray alien. And it's strange that like UFO sightings often kind of seem to be like spiritual in a way, like they're not quite physical. Like they'll fade in and out, and like other strange things that just like seem like it's not really a physical object that's physically there. It's like almost like a ghostly phenomenon in a way, with a lot of these UFO sightings. And I apologize if this video seems kind of all over the place. It's just there's so many different dots that need to be connected, and you just gotta kind of build the context to explain it all. And it seems like all these magicians and stuff have also experimented with drugs, psychedelic drugs, and just other kind of drugs. But on people do DMT and they talk about seeing machine elves and going to a different realm and stuff, and seeing all the sacred geometry and all this kind of stuff that, like, it's all associated with psychedelics and stuff, that they see these things and they actually communicate with these machine elves, or sometimes they're like reptilian beings, or they're like insect beings, and they will talk to them. Sometimes they'll tell them to give other people DMT so they can experience the same thing. And it's like, maybe you can get some insight out of it, but in a way, it seems to me that the DMT realm, or the psychedelic realm, is basically like you're just seeing the demonic realm that is kind of overlaid on top of our reality. They exist in that. It's a different dimension almost, but they exist there where we don't normally see them. We don't normally get to interact with them. But when you use psychedelics, you might, it kind of is like a gateway, a chemical gateway in your brain for your consciousness to see these things and tap into that realm. So maybe, the beings or the entities that people see on psychedelics, mainly DMT, maybe those are actually the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the demons, the evil spirits. And, those demons, they want to try to get into our bodies so they can experience physical things again. And, so even if it's for a short time, there's a book called Visions of Glory, and it talks about how he has a near-death experience, and, it's like out of his body, and he can see the demons going around trying to get into people's bodies when they're at the bar or whatever they're doing. Like, they want to experience those things again. And so demons hang around when you're doing things like that, or, might have a demon that likes to gamble or whatever. But, they all just try to possess people so that they can get a brief experience again of doing that thing that they used to do. And there was a guy in the 1500s named Paracelsus, who was like a physician who experimented with alchemy and the Hermetic philosophy, all this stuff. He was infatuated with all that. And he tried creating something called homunculi, where he'd basically take his own DNA and, do some ritual to it or whatever he did to it. There's some other process involved, I think, but basically it would end up becoming like a being, like that you could, like a miniature small being that you could keep in like a jar or something. And basically, I think that might have something to do with the demons. It's like the demon just wants to have a body, right? And so maybe to please a demon, they would make a homunculi or a golem in order for the demon to possess it so that they could have a body now. And, when you think about it, AI is pretty similar to that idea. It's something that maybe demons can now possess and take hold of so they can experience certain things again, although it might not be as enjoyable as having like an actual body. So the homunculi might be preferred over AI. And it's a pretty common thing among abduction stories that the aliens would basically do some kind of operation on the person that would leave no scar or something. I guess maybe in some cases that could, like Stephen Greer, I think his name was, he found some evidence of physical evidence that proves that they actually got abducted by aliens. So maybe there's something out there, but basically aliens are kind of known for taking samples of human DNA. They would take eggs from the woman or something, sperm from the man, other things. They would just take some kind of DNA sample, And supposedly there's even cases of women being impregnated by aliens. And before the baby was born, the aliens would abduct the woman again and steal the baby from her. And I think it's Carla Turner who talks about that in some of her research. And I believe she also says it seems like the gray aliens could be like clones. They almost resemble a fetus in a way that might have been deformed and has kind of remained in that fetal kind of state. And basically it's like a computer that's just been wiped clean of all the information, and you can reprogram it. And so that's what these stolen babies could be, is like they're like a reprogrammed human that basically got turned into a gray alien, and they just do the bidding of the master, whoever that is. And so gray aliens are kind of like a golem in a way, which is basically like something that's been animated out of dead flesh, almost like a zombie in a way. And apparently Jack Parsons actually created a golem with some woman. He made a golem or a homunculi, whatever you want to call it, kind of the same thing. But yeah, it's strange that Jack Parsons was involved with that. I think Aleister Crowley was doing the same things. Paracelsus was. All these occultists. And maybe it's so demons can possess these things and take over these deformed bodies. at least they have something now, right? And I believe the instructions to create a homunculi, or a golem, is actually found in the Kabbalah, which was said to be housed at Solomon's temple. Something else that was really strange about Jack Parsons was supposedly Charles Russell, the founder of Jehovah's Witnesses. He prophesied that on October 2nd, 1914, the beginning of the end of humanity would commence with the emergence of the Antichrist. And Jack Parsons was born on that exact day. And, Parsons was said to have basically attempted to summon the Antichrist to bring about Babylon and the Antichrist.